Welcome back, WNST, Towson, Baltimore, and WNST.net. You know, I've said this a couple times this week, going out to Seattle. I'm excited about it. We don't get out there too often. I did make it out in 15 on the baseball tour. I've been out to see U2, Pearl Jam, some other stuff. But to go out for a Seahawks game, it's been a new era. And we talked a lot of baseball this week about the Mariners and King Felix and Ichiro and the Huskies as well. This guy makes his home out there doing all sorts of sports work and has been on PFT as well as KJR. It's K west of the Mississippi, W on this side. He's been with us before talking Mariners, and we don't talk much baseball around here in the summer, so I don't call the Mariners reporters as much. Curtis Crabtree can be found on Twitter at Curtis_Crabtree. What's going on, man? Lots have changed since the 8 years since we went out there the last time. This Russell Wilson thing, I think it's going to catch on, right?
Yeah, I think he's got a chance to be all right. Just a hunch there, but I think he might be a decent quarterback when all is said and done here.
But he doesn't get off the bus looking right? Like, so for fans like us, we don't think we're seeing Tom Brady, even though we kind of are, right?
Yeah, I mean, believe me, when he first got to training camp in 2012 and they'd signed Matt Flynn to a free agent contract, and it was like, that was going to be the guy, and then they're like, no, Russell Wilson's going to compete for the job. We're like, okay, sure he is. He's like 6 foot. He's not going to compete for this job. Well, since then, he's basically run away with everything and proven he's the best quarterback in franchise history and is having probably the best start to a season he's had yet. So Russell is playing fantastic football right now, and he is a big reason that they're off to a 5-1 start here this year.
For you watching all of this, and I haven't really approached this topic with anyone else, I once heard, maybe it was Parcells saying, I don't want my quarterback in the hot tub at the Playboy Mansion, And there's a part of this celebrity thing for him, and his wife's more famous, kind of like Tom Brady to some degree, and who he's seen with and where he is, but sort of exudes class and sort of what you'd want, but there's a part of him that's incredibly underappreciated until you have to go play him on Sunday. Someone asked me earlier this week, maybe it's Dave Wyman or somebody said, hey, what's the perception of him elsewhere? I said, the perception is we have to fly 3,000 miles and beat him on Sunday, and, this isn't, there is no positive perception of that because I think people realize how good he is, but you don't watch him a lot because we don't see the Seahawks a lot.
Yeah, he is. Russell is he's an interesting character for one. He's pretty private in some aspects, but then on the other hand, he's got a singer wife and Ciara, and is in the spotlight on that front. I mean, in some ways, I think he wants to be like a Jay-Z in some regards, like a mogul with business stuff and all of that sort of thing too. But he is firmly committed to football on about as much as you can be, and he works his backside off to be the quarterback that he is on that front too. And as you said, he's a frustrating quarterback to play, I would imagine, more so than anything, just because he'll feel like you've got him hemmed in, and then he'll make some ridiculous play and get out of trouble. And you can do all of these things right, and he'll still find a way to beat you. So Russell has really put together a fantastic first 8 years of his career here. And he's obviously in the MVP conversation through 6 weeks with how he started this year. I still think he probably peaked out better in the later stages of the 2015 season. The last time you guys would have seen him, actually, the game that Seattle was out there, that was probably the best pure stretch of football I've seen him play up to this point. But this is right on the heels of that and has a chance to carry over for the full season. So he's playing terrific right now.
Well, part of this, Curtis, is the cast of characters, right? And the fact that there's been this steadying hand with Schneider and Pete Carroll, and we'll get to that in a minute. But part of the cast of characters, same thing with Joe Flacco around here not doing it, and Anquan Bolden coming back and taking a bow over the weekend. Joe Flacco might still be around here. I don't know. Certainly there is a point where you say goodbye to Earl Thomas, and this is the week he's coming back. But Russell Wilson is the star of the show around there. Make no mistake of it. Bobby Wagner aside, and really it's Pete's show, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean, it's always been Pete Carroll's program, but, some different personalities throughout the years have pushed back on that at times when, Richard Sherman, Michael Bennett, those guys have their own big personalities in some ways too. And, that defense that was built here together felt like they owned a big part of the success that Seattle had over that stretch of getting to back-to-back Super Bowls and all of that. And so there has been a little bit of a changing of the guard because that defense was the thing that first kind of put him on the map, and now Russell Wilson's the one that has inherited that baton and is carrying it on from there. It is a little bit different sort of feel to it now. As you mentioned, basically there's only a couple guys still left that were a part of that first Super Bowl team at this point. Russell Wilson, Bobby Wagner, KJ Wright, and then Luke Wilson is back after leaving for a year to Detroit. Those were the only four guys that were around for that first year. And so you've got, a receiving core that basically grew up already watching him play in the NFL. And so there is a little bit more reverence around the quarterback at that point in time as opposed to in the early stages of his career when those guys were here before he was. So it certainly has changed the mood and the dynamic a little bit within the team, but it is now definitely Russell Wilson's team on the field, but it is still Pete Carroll's program, and everything he kind of carries with it kind of hangs over everything.
He is Curtis Crabtree. He is Curtis _Crabtree. He's doing it out in Seattle in the Emerald City and getting ready for quite a weekend, right? I mean, you cover the Huskies, and it dawned on me like Monday night. People said to me, hey, I'm coming out early for the Huskies game. And I'm like, oh, I've wanted to go to that stadium. That seems like a pretty cool place. And, Oregon's coming in. How much are tickets? What's going on? What's the weather forecast? Rainy 52, as it always is rainy and 52 in Seattle. So I'm going to miss the Huskies thing, but I know you get to take that action in. I'm going to regret missing this, aren't I, Curtis?
Well, it should be, whenever Washington and Oregon meet, it ends up being an interesting battle just because Oregon really has taken it to Washington for a big stretch of the last decade. Washington's found its footing again here more recently and finally gotten some victories back and all of that. But Oregon has really kind of become, in a lot of ways, Washington's chief rival, more so than even Washington State, because Washington just seems to beat Washington State just about every year. It's basically the inverse of what Washington and Oregon was there during, the peak of the Chip Kelly years and Mike Bellotti at the end and all of that. So, Oregon's trying to find a way to keep the Pac-12 relevant in the playoff chase, and Washington's going to want to knock them off here at home. They've had their, couple hiccups so far this year with losses to the Bay Area teams, Cal and Stanford. As you mentioned, the weather, when Cal was up here a month ago, there was thunder and lightning that delayed the game for 2.5 hours. We didn't leave the stadium until 2 o'clock in the morning. So that was a little bit of an interesting game that particular night. But Washington, Oregon should be an interesting one on Saturday for sure.
The experience of Husky football there, I mean, that's like, this will be one of the most exciting. You get a lot of exciting sports, though, right? I mean, your soccer team's exciting, right? Like, it's not the Mariners around there. If you want sports excitement, that's not the 12th man. There's a bunch going on in Seattle that packs them in, as they say, that's not the Supersonics these days, right?
Yeah, and I mean, the Sounders are still, working their way into the MLS playoffs. I think they're near the top of the Western Conference and all of that. Soccer's the one thing I don't particularly spend a whole heck of a lot of time on, but the Mariners are a team that I probably covered 90-plus home games over the last 2 years. We punted on them when they got to the start of training camp just because, much like the Orioles out there, the team wasn't going anywhere this year. They're trying to reset and rebuild and all of that sort of thing. But basically, the Mariners are still trying to figure out where they're going to move next. With basically, if the Mariners are going to be good anytime in the next few years, it's because all of their guys that were in Double-A this year are going to be something. And the Jared Kelnick, who they got in the Robinson Cano trade, it looks like the real deal. They've got some young prospects that are coming through the system. It looks like they might have a chance to do something and hit. But the Mariners have just been terrible for a long, long time at developing any offensive talent throughout their system, and that's been the biggest thing that's held them back. And right now, as it is, the Washington Nationals look pretty close to getting to the World Series, which if they do, it would leave the Mariners as the lone team that's never made it to the World Series. So that's basically where they're at this point in time.
We don't bring up the Nationals and World Series thing around here. We're doing a whole bye week next week dedicated to forgetting that they're going to be in the World Series next week. So Curtis Crabtree is here. He is out in the Emerald City of Seattle. Let's get back onto the field and what the 19 Seahawks represent with Russell Wilson. The Earl Thomas thing, right? That's a huge story. I mean, it's huge for him here or whatever, but out there's going to be that long 45-second thing. There's the stretcher middle finger aimed at Pete Carroll or at John Schneider or at whomever. There's a lot of emotion going on to this above and beyond, like just the offenses and the defenses, and here comes Lamar Jackson, right?
Yeah, I mean, it'll be interesting to see what the reaction is when Earl's back in town because of the whole incident with throwing a middle finger Pete Carroll's way in Arizona when he got injured last year and all of that, and the contract holdout leading into the season. It just, the whole experience just did not end the way that I'm sure everybody would have liked it to, but I know the way Pete Carroll and those guys operate, it's not something they're going to hold against Earl in any regard. I'm sure there's going to be some fans out there that do just because they feel like he, was because of the holdout and then flipping the bird at the team and all of that on the way out the door and saying he doesn't regret doing so and all of that whole sort of situation. But Earl is a fantastic football player. I haven't had a chance to watch him much this year. He's been fantastic his entire career in Seattle, and it just got time where the relationship didn't make sense anymore. So he gets his chance out there in Baltimore, and it will be interesting to see what the reaction is with him coming back to town here this weekend.
Well, it feels to me like this defense of the Seahawks would see more of an RPO-style offense and contending, even in practice, with the unique things that Russell Wilson does, making plays. I mean, we've seen Lamar do neighborhood, church lot stuff here, drawing it up, stopping in traffic, all sorts of things, including running into linebackers, which we'd like to see less of. Seahawks defense, tell me about how they're constructed and how they're going to get after Lamar and get after what's a little bit of a shadow image of what Russell Wilson tries to do offensively.
Yeah, they're still trying to find themselves a little bit here defensively. They're getting Jaron Reed back from suspension this week, which could be a big boost for them. They're still basically trying to learn each other in a lot of ways because you get Jadeveon Clowney in a trade the week before the start of the regular season, so he's trying to get up to speed and learn the defense and all that on the fly. Ziggy Ansah started practicing about 2 days before the start of the first week because he'd missed all of training camp with a shoulder injury, so their pass rush is still trying to find itself, and Reed obviously has missed the first 6 weeks of the season, so they came away from last week's game against Cleveland with 0 sacks and 0 quarterback hits. Part of that was because of how quick the Browns were getting the ball out, but still, that double goose egg on the pass rush front doesn't look great in retrospect. And then on the back end of the defense, Tedrick Thompson is not Earl Thomas, and so there is a little bit of a loss there at the safety position, is just what to expect from back there. But they'll play more base defense, more 4-3 base defense than probably any team in the league right now, with 3 linebackers who are pretty solid across the board, obviously, in Bobby Wagner, KJ Wright, and then Michael Kendricks is a guy that they've really enjoyed having here. He's probably a little bit more proficient as a pass rusher than anticipated, but he's got a little bit more issues when it comes to pass coverage. But they'll play their standard 4-3 base defense against in more snaps than probably most teams are nowadays with the proliferation of passing offenses and spread schemes and all that. They'll stay in their base defense more regularly, and so the Ravens will see a more stacked box in that regard with an extra linebacker on the field for Lamar this weekend, probably than with the way the Seattle will go about this. And then out at corner, Shaquille Griffin's been off to a great start to the season. He's playing really good football at one corner. Trey Flowers is still learning the position in some regards after making the conversion from safety a year ago. But so there's still kind of outside of the linebacker core, there's still kind of a unit in progress and working towards the end of the season. I have a feeling they'll be a better defense in December than they are now, but they're trying to get their stuff moving in the right direction here.
Curtis Crabtree joining us here. Kurt's having a slight little mic problem on your end. We'll take a check on that. You can find him at Curtis_Crabtree out on Twitter, doing Mariners and doing Huskies and trying to stay dry amidst the Seahawks. There's certainly no teardrops in the raindrops, and I'm certainly not sad to be coming out to see 52 and raining. That's what I expect, and a Who concert on Saturday night. But give me a little Seattle primer, Curtis. I get out there every couple of years. I got a couple of places I've gone for breakfast and lunch and pizza and beer, and I've thrown the fish and pike. I've done all that stuff. Now it's more like I'm trying to get out off the beaten path. Give me some spots, man. Give me some places to go.
Well, what do you like to do, Nestor? Is there anything else that you think you can get out of town for, or is it just mainly sticking around once you get in on Saturday?
You know, like some ideas. Like I've never been to the Seattle Japanese Garden. I've been up in the Space Needle, but I've never been to the Mopop. You know what I mean? I've been up and down the hill. I even know which road to walk on that's not so hilly. So you go through the middle and you don't have to climb the hill so much. So you know, I've been up and down a little bit, but I'm just looking for a good wreck. That's all.
Well, I'll actually say you should probably, even if you've been down there before, you should probably get down to the waterfront again because there's a new tunnel through downtown Seattle, and they've knocked down the viaduct that used to be there that ran along the waterfront. So it's a little bit more open now along there. So there's obviously good restaurants down on the waterfront too, and the view is a little bit more, more open and a little bit better than it even was in the past from down there. So that might be the best recommendation I have for you. And then I'm sure you could find a good restaurant down there too, particularly if you're looking for seafood. Wild Ginger is another one downtown that would be something of note too. But
I have been to Wild Ginger, so there you go. So now I know we're speaking the same language here, Kurt. You know.
Yeah, for sure. I've only been there a couple times myself, but it's a solid place for sure.
All right, man. Well, I'm all set up. I'm ready to come in there, get into Seattle, get wet, see some Russell Wilson, 12th man. There's kind of nothing like it. I love your stadium. I love the vibe. It's a pretty good football game for this time of year. It feels nice to have a big game to get on a plane and come out there for, right?
For sure, and I'm just as curious to see what Lamar Jackson looks like in person and see how that whole thing looks as well. So it should be an interesting one on Sunday for sure.
Don't let him get to the edge. That's all I'm telling you, Kurt. Be well, man. Appreciate the call.
You too, Nestor.
You got it, Curtis Crabtree joining us from KJR. There's no W in that. They're out in Seattle, and we'll be out there this weekend. And Luke's on the backfields in Owings Mills all week long. You can check him out. You can certainly get on our WNST text service to get the injury updates. We'll find out how Peanut's doing, Jimmy Smith, some others, and you'll get that all week long. It's all brought to you by Coons Florida Security Boulevard. Dennis Colazzo's taking his bye week this week. Christos will be here. I'll be here. Next week, Dennis will be here. I will be bye-bye next week, and it's going to be Baltimore positive all week here. You'll be hearing some of the best interviews I've done in my career this year with Don Moeller, my lifetime friend and former Baltimore County executive and one-time high school guidance counselor, even though he hates when I tell it. It's the best story ever. First guy I met first day of high school was Don Moeller. And we're doing radio together 37 years later, talking about making the world a better place with everyone from Ben Cardin and John Sarbanes and Freeman Rabowski and Sarah Heminger and John Sarbanes and Johnny O and Jack Young and Brandon Scott and Al Hathaway and, oh my God, Nancy Grasmick. Who am I leaving out? Barbara Mikulski, maybe my favorite one. So make sure you find all those. Matt Gallagher. I have to keep going through the names. All out at BaltimorePositive.com. You'll hear all that next week. There you go. I am Nestor. We are WNST.net, AM 1570, and WNST Towson, Baltimore. And we never stop talking Baltimore positive and good places to eat in Seattle.